figure out where things were going. And we found out that they were gone on a certain day of the week. You know, every Tuesday I roll around and, you know, you have a stack of clothes missing. And then we try to do it in the morning, we do it at night, we find out they would be there in the morning, and they would be gone by nighttime. So it was happening in the middle of the day. And so what we were able to realize is that there were people that were taking large amounts of clothes, like $5,000, $6,000 worth of stuff, like every week from our store. So one day, Tuesday rolled around, and was right in the middle of the day, right when everything was set up, right when I knew that things were taken up, that there was this guy up in the front room. I look over at him, and I kind of knew that something was up with the guy. Like, there are signs to watch for when somebody's going to, like, try to take stuff. They don't check the prices, right? They just kind of looking at the item. They look at you a lot. And they look back at the item, and then, you know, they don't really look that intensely at anything. They don't really care about sizes or anything like that. They're just kind of rummaging. And so you kind of stare at them, and you kind of make it an awkward game. And so I was being as awkward as possible, and standing right next to the guy, and there's this other guy in the room that calls me over. And you work in customer service, you have to help out people. But I still didn't like this guy. So there was a manager in the other room, and he was like a newer manager, and so I called him, you know, hey, come over here real quick. How about this guy? He needs a lot of help. And the guy just kind of looks at him really awkwardly, because I had been awkward the whole time, and it was perfect. And so I go and help out the other guy, but while I'm helping out that guy, somebody calls me over at the register. And then so I'm trying to help out this guy, there's a gal at the register, they're all asking for help. Somebody grabs a stack from the front room on the other side. There are two front rooms, there's one on this side, there's one on this side. Somebody grabs a stack from the room on the front on that side, and he takes off running. And then the first guy that I was helping, he takes off running, and the other manager yells at me to say that he took off running. So the gal at the register that was paying, like she had money in her hand, she leaves the money on the register. She takes off running, grabs a stack on her way out, and the other guy runs and grabs a stack on their way out too. So there are 4 people running out of my store. So I yell at the other manager, the new guy, you know, call the cops or whatever, right? And so I go running after the 4 people down the mall, which you're not supposed to do at all. And so I'm like, booking it, you know, and I get to like, I'm almost caught up to them right as they get outside the door. And right as they're getting outside the door, there's a van that's pulled up. They slam the door right as I'm getting there. I try to get the license plate number. I couldn't get the license plate number. And they get away. Well, they almost got it. They didn't get away clean. They left like $2.13 at the register. Which was a good way to make up for getting away with about $6,000 of merchandise that day. So one of the things that I noticed in this experience is that some of those tedious things, it was the going back, it was the checking every day that enabled us to see that there was something wrong, that there was something going on that was atypical, all right? One of the things that we do in our faith is we try to do accountability. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to do this thing where you're around somebody all the time and you're talking to them all the time, and you're trying to kind of take inventory and see what's there and see what's not there. And you're not doing it for the everyday, but you're doing it for the times when there's some big kind of issue. All right, there's a passage that talks about this that we're going to look at today. All right, it says, our Ephesians 4:25 is up there, and it says, therefore, there we go. Therefore, putting aside falsehood, speak truth to each person who is neighbor, for we are all members of one another. What we're going to look at in this passage today is a simple truth. Holding each other accountable is part of living the way God wants us to live. So, there's a whole bunch of information packed in this thing. We're just going to go ahead and unwrap it. The first word in that thing is therefore. There's a lot of information in therefore, right? Like you have context and that kind of thing. Therefore, the guys usually say something along the lines of, if you see therefore, you got to know what it's therefore, right? Well, if you look at this therefore, you're going to see that it points back to the last section, which is the first part of chapter 4. And then if you look at that one, you're going to see that that one starts with the therefore, and that one points to a section before it, and that section points to a section before it, and that section points to a section before it, and then you get to the beginning of the book. And so all the therefores are mounting this like cumulative case. All this stuff, everything that's been said before chapter 4, verse 25, affects this verse. We're going to look at it very, very simply. Very simply. The book starts off blessing God. Blessed be the God and the Father. And it goes on. It has some of the longest sentences in the Bible, and it's all just like you can't find enough words to say how great God is. And the reason why God is great is that He has seen that we have a need in order to be able to come to Him, and He's done something about that need. So God, through the work of Jesus, through the cross and resurrection, has done some amazing things. So God needs to be praised for enabling us to draw near to Him. One of the, he uses a lot of metaphors, he's used like 7 up to this point. One of the ones that stood out to me in a big way was the idea of being dead versus being alive. And if you're thinking about trying to draw near to somebody and you're dead, you're not getting very far, right? Like, just picture that, okay? So here's your first mental picture for the day. There's a corpse on the ground. It's kind of like rotting, and like the teeth, like there are a couple of teeth left, but like the flies have definitely gathered around the thing. And some guy's standing over here, and he says, "Come." Nothing's happening, right? Like the only way that corpse is going to get to that guy is if somebody like picks it up and drags it, and like the blood trails leaving behind. That's the only way it's going to come. But if there's an alive person, you're going to have an entirely different experience, right? Like just it's that picture of the guy who comes back from the war, and he's so excited to be back, and there's the whole crowd, but he only sees one person waving back, and it's her, and she sees him, and they go like running at each other, right? Like she's alive and he's alive, not only like physically, but their hearts are. And they go at each other. The life of the person that God has instilled within us is the ability to draw near. It's the thing that keeps us from lying on the ground when God says, "Come." He's made that possible. All right? Chapter 4, when we get to chapter 4, it says that the right way for us to respond to God's word is to have every member of the community live out their faith morally and supporting each other. Okay? Everybody's responsibility is to live out their faith morally and supporting each other. You guys have group projects in school. They are like the most annoying things ever, right? Yeah. Imagine if one of your members is a baker. So your project, it's high school English, and our project today is we're going to work on, you have to analyze a sonnet by Shakespeare. Right? So your job is to find out context of Elizabethan or whatever. And the other guy's job is to find out how that sonnet fits in the context of the other sonnets that he's written. And the baby is the one that's going to analyze the sonnet and tell everybody about it, right? So you do your part. And you're saying everything great. And then the next guy says his part. He says everything great. And then everybody's eyes go on the little baby. Right? And the baby sees that everybody's looking at him. He just kind of looks around, the eyes get really big, and then he just starts, right? You know that you're not getting a good grade on that thing. Because everybody has got to be given their part. It's responsible in a spiritual sense. We're all on the same body, we're working on the same kind of stuff. And we're responsible not only for the spiritual well-being and morality that comes out of us, right? That's God's gift and that kind of thing. But you're not responsible just for what comes out of you. You're responsible for the other people. It's your group project. Right? The next phrase on there is putting aside falsehood right here, right? This phrase, when he says putting aside falsehood, it's not happening, it's not the only time he says it. Okay? It happens in context right here, okay? He doesn't tell us to put something aside without telling us to put something on. So we're going to look at a few verses right before it. This says, starting in Ephesians 4, chapter 4, verse 19. If you become callous, and have given themselves up to sensuality, greedy to practice every kind of impurity. That is not the way you learn Christ. Assuming that you've heard about Him and were taught in Him as the truth is in Jesus, to put off your old self, which belongs to the former manner of life and its corrupt and deceitful desires, and be renewed in the spirit of mind, and put on the new self, created after the likeness of God, in true righteousness and holiness. He tells us to put something on and put something on. What's the thing you're supposed to put off? Put off the old life. You're supposed to put on the new life, right? It uses the word self, right? Put off the old self, put on the new self. The idea of putting on isn't like the kind of image that comes to your head. I think that for a lot of us, you think about putting something, taking something off, and putting something on. And you think about like clothes, right? Like the morning, horrible, worst time of the day. Adequately named, right? Morning. But you think, okay, the hardest part of that moment, at least for me, is the fact that you have to decide where. Right? Because you're like, you don't have all of your faculties anyway, and it's like, the red shirt or the green shirt, I don't know, I don't care. And you have to make that decision of what you're going to put on. So you put the shirt on, and you wear it all day, and then you take it off. That's not the kind of putting aside that he's talking about when he says putting aside the falsehood. So you can take something on and put it on. It's very different than if you're stuck with it. A better image of putting something on is if there was a dad or a guy, he's a young marriage and he has a sweet Xbox collection, right? So he goes to work, he's responsible, he hangs out with his wife for a little bit. They have their dinner thing or something, and then goes and plays Xbox for a couple hours and chill out for the rest of the day. He finds out there's a baby on the way. Things are changing, right? The guy's not going to go be playing the Xbox all the time. It's a natural thing that happens, right? Because something that's going to affect the entirety of his life. He might play a little bit, he might have weekends or whatever, but he's going to be looking for work. He put on a new responsibility that he didn't have. The difference between this and putting on a shirt, you're taking both of these things. It's something that A, changed him, and B, he can't get rid of. When it talks about putting aside falsehood in our verse, it's talking about putting aside a characteristic of the old self. Okay? Something that you don't want to hold on to, right? So, it says not just to put something on, like I said, it says to put something on. The thing that you're supposed to be putting on is speaking truth, each one to your neighbor. And so what does speaking truth look like as accountability? And that's what we're talking about today. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what accountability is, what it looks like, all that kind of thing. So I got to divide it for you. We got proactive and retroactive accountability. I'm going to define those terms. Alright, you guys have heard proactive, the facial cleaner, right? Who has heard of proactive? Right? We got commercials, channels, they got all kinds of things. They got actors, all kinds of things. Anyway, what's the idea, right? The idea behind proactive is that, right, you're not looking at your face and you go, oh my gosh, I have a pimple, it's bad. And then, like most things, you say that, you see it, and you stick a little something on the pimple, and maybe it dries it out or something, the pimple goes away, your life is great. Proactive is this different idea where you see the pimple, you see there's something wrong, you understand that that's a symptom, maybe you have a bad facial balance, right? Like you have too much oil or something like that, right? So you wash your face with their product, and eventually the big problems go away because you're taking care of the root problems. You're making the root thing healthy. And then the symptoms of bad things are going away. Proactive accountability is the idea of living life together. Okay? The idea of being accountable to somebody else when you are together. Okay? So there are two ways to do that. There are two ways to live life with somebody in an accountable way. One is to put on the things of God together. The example that came to my head most readily is I have a really good time when I get to plan stuff for you guys with Seth. We get together and we talk and we have good times and we like the most emotion I've seen in that guy, like in a conversation, is when regarding like how to plan stuff for you guys. He gets excited, his heart is there. He really cares a whole lot about you guys. It's really cool to have a place in my life where I get to put on the things of God with somebody else, proactively. I'm finding a place to do that, something that didn't just come naturally. Okay? That's going to look different for you. Probably. For some of you guys, it might be you end up praying before your game, or for some of you guys, it's, hey, we're going to go find some good stuff to do. For some of you guys, it's going to be, hey, I'm going to grab my friend, let's go do a service project here. It's going to look different. But there is a spot in life that you're in. There are people that you're going to be around. And you have a responsibility to be proactive and accountable to helping the person next to you and yourself live out your faith in active ways. Okay? The other way is to put off things of the old self together, right? We just saw those in this verse, and we need to do both of those things. Putting off things of the old self, for an example for that, we tried to do code words in college, a friend of mine and I. Okay, so I like fun people. That's usually where I spend my time, is the people that are energetic, and those people usually get into trouble at some point or another, right? So we had to have a go-to, let's get out of here statement. So we tried to have like a code word where it would be like, hey, you say this word, I'll understand what you're trying to communicate to me, we'll get out of here. That wasn't very good, because I was really good at picking up the code word. We got code topics, and when we got to code topics, I was like, I'm set on this. So we would have, for us, we were trying to find a way to hold each other accountable and get out of bad situations. We used the topic of Marvel comics. It was when Marvel Alliance 1 came out that you guys played. It's a pretty amazing video game. And he would, okay, so like the context would be, we're somewhere and somebody does something and it's like, this is the spot we need to get out of. He would bust out and he'd be like, oh my gosh, Captain America, awesomest guy ever. And he's a real loud guy. And so he'd be like, he'd just like start putting on the roids and, he'd start beating everybody up and shield attack, and then he punches real fast, and once it would finally click, I'd be like, I know, I don't have to be Deadpool, because he likes to teleport around, and he's got all these bombs, and he can just sit back, and he's shooting everybody. And by that point, we would both be on the same page. We need to get out of here, is what's going through our minds, even though the words that were coming out were, this game. And then we had to kind of transfer some kind of, oh, dude, we need to go play. I know, right? Like right now? Yeah, let's go. And so we would get out of it. And that worked pretty well. We have one other one. This one's kind of like a secret. I told a lot of people this one, but this is a good environment to share secrets. So I'm a scholastic a little bit, and I've been in school for a long time. I'm not really a scholastic, but I've just been in school for a long time. I'm ashamed to say. And so I can talk theology because I've been in Bible school for like 8 years. And so could my buddy. And so if we really needed to talk to like a heart-to-heart, there are some parts of that where you can be just really boring and people will tune out really quick. And he would like jump in and be, dude, supralapsarianism, right? And I'd be like, I know, I'm trying to figure that out. And I'd use words like premillennial, millennial, and yeah, by that point, we didn't even have to make complete sentences, and people would be like, I'm going over here, because they don't get a lot of that stuff, and we would have a moment where we were able to go, dude, my heart's in a bad spot, I need to deal with that. And so for us, we were able to find some code topics. We would find something that we knew that was going on, that was a way for us to share, like, we need to get out of something bad. Okay? There's a proactive accountability that says, when I'm with my friends, I'm watching out that they're doing something good, and I'm watching out that they're not doing something bad. There's another kind of accountability, okay? Proactive happens in the moment, retroactive happens after the moment. Okay? You have probably seen or heard or talked about some kind of retroactive accountability kind of thing. Most of the people, when they picture accountability, they picture retroactive accountability. It's the afterwards, hey, did you screw up this week? Yeah, I screwed up this week. Hey, did you screw up this week? Yeah. That's the general idea, but it's, okay, so that conversation that we just shared, all this together, that's not a real whole, good, solid conversation. Okay? So there is an aspect of you can't always be around your friends, right? There are going to be times where it's just you and the world, or it's you and the decision. You know, you're at home, the computer's on, and you go somewhere bad, or, you know, somebody asks you to go out, and your friend's not answering their phone. So you gotta make decisions on your own sometimes, you know. Hopefully they're prayerful, but you gotta have some kind of catch up, some kind of, okay, this is what we're gonna do. So a good way to do it, a really good way to do it, is just to make some kind of, we're just gonna do it. You say, hey, time and place, you know, 7 o'clock on Thursday, whatever, we are gonna go and we're just gonna talk. Okay? It doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter when, it just matters that you do it. It matters that you catch up and that you care about somebody, because your responsibility, your faith, is your own hands. And that's one way to do it. So what you're going to talk about in a retroactive conversation is you need to talk about life, you need to talk about motivation, and you do need to talk about stuff. Okay? So life. When you were in your family groups tonight, one of the things you have to do is high-low. That is an example of an easy way to jump into the, hey, let's talk about life conversation. What's good, what's bad about you? Motivation. If there was any part of this thing that you're going to catch, if there's any part of this thing that you are going to catch about how to communicate to your friends the things that are important, is that you're going to talk with them about motivation. Okay? The things that drive you, that's where your faith is. You get all these thoughts when you're in church, and they're very important thoughts, but when the moments when your faith becomes real are the moments when you're acting, when you're doing something. But it's the thing that's inside of you that makes you make that decision. That's where your faith is. Okay? So if like, you get to the situation, right, like it's the girl, and she's so pretty, and she just wants you to go to the party, but you know it's the wrong party to be going to, you know everybody's getting smashed. It's a thing that makes you decide, yes, I'm going to go, no, I'm not going to go. So, take some time, talk with your friends, catch up, talk about why is that what you're doing. Okay? And the other thing that you need to talk about is sin. Okay? James 5:16 says, therefore, confess your sins to one another, pray for one another, so that you may be healed. Recently, I took my car, took it to the shop. I'm going to go on a long trip in December, and I decided that it would be a good idea to take my car to the mechanic. I wanted to check everything out and find whatever we could that was wrong with it. So we found a bunch of stuff that was wrong with it. We got that all fixed up. We got the radiator hose fixed, we got the U-joints fixed, I got new tires on the thing, I got a new battery. The car's in pretty great shape right now. There's one little thing we didn't talk about. Is that when that radiator hose was put on there, that the little connection had like disintegrated because it rusts up here in the snow and salt and all that kind of stuff. And so we put that radiator hose back on there, and I'm driving around the next day. The next day was the day we left for camp. And I was driving around doing my errands before we left, and I started to smell something, and so I pulled over and I saw green fluid on the ground, and I called up my mechanic and I said, hey, there's green fluid on the ground, I can smell a little something, can we do something about it? He's like, oh sure, take it in and we'll check it out. So I'm in Vernon Hills, and my mechanic is in Libertyville. They're not very far away from each other. From the time I left Vernon Hills to the time I got to Libertyville, here's what happened. Inside my car, the radiator hose, okay, so the connection had disintegrated, and it just totally gave out. The radiator hose came unattached. All the coolant that goes through there went out the bottom of my car. So the car very quickly overheated, right? So you've got that little meter that goes like from hot to cold, you want to kind of in the middle when your car's on. It like went half past the top, and then I got a big smoke cloud of steam going out of my car. So everybody driving by me on the road was staring. There's a guy with a broken car, and then emergency lights on, and it was not a good moment. You know, the car could have gotten ruined forever. Luckily, it was a very short drive. And I made it. there was something in there that wasn't right, that needed to be dealt with. The reason why I think about this is because it's far better to take care of issues early rather than to let them explode. You guys are going to have a lot more significant things in your lives than a radiator. I don't know. It's got things like, they're like drug issues, right? Like somebody's going to come to you someday and you're going to have a chance to get high. You're going to have a chance to have a baby. You're going to have a chance to have things that are going to shape your life in significant ways. And things that you need, things that are on the inside matter so much. And the faith in those things matters so much. And the support that you give each other, like proactively, retroactively, it's knowing that that other person is there, all that kind of stuff. That's a huge part of enabling people to love each other, to live well, and to live out their faith. Sometimes you just need that help. Right? Why? Here's my conclusion. Ephesians 4:25 ends by reminding us that we're members of one another. We've talked about it before, but the body has a whole bunch of parts that rely on each other. If there was a runner, and he had the strongest legs in the world, and he had the strongest lungs in the world, but he had this shrunken little heart, like the Grinch's heart, and he tried to run that thing would just burst. And then he would not be the strongest runner in the world. He would look like that corpse that we're talking about. You know, yeah, bad. Every part of this thing has to be working together. Okay. I got one last image for you. Here's the image. You have a friend. He's a girl. And she just met a guy. And he's not just a guy. In her eyes, she is the guy. Right? He is like so hot. And he is like so funny. And he is so interesting. And she is wrapped around him. Right? Like just everything about him. You go to lunch and you're hanging out and all you hear about is the guy. And it's like one of those kind of things where you can have a conversation and you can say something about something else and she doesn't even notice because she's so wrapped up in the guy, right? Well, as the relationship develops, he has to come to these stages where he gets closer and closer to her, right? So one of those stages involves meeting people, right? So at some point, since you're his friend, or her friend, he has to come by, right? So you have the time where he comes by, y'all do dinner. It's a great dinner, the food's wonderful, you have your little conversation, and then the guy leaves and she's like, oh my gosh, he is so amazing, right? And you just have this look on your face. And he goes, what? And you have to have that conversation. He's a moron. And there's nothing about you two that line up. Your friend's going to be like, and offended, but it's going to be a good moment because it's going to help out your friend. Okay, so I like guy movies. I like Clash of the Titans, and I liked Fast Five, and I thought those were a lot of action. Well, I wish I could blame this on somebody else. I watched kind of like a soap opera kind of thing. And so here's what happened in the soap opera. Alright, so the main character is a girl. She is talking to her sister, and her sister meets the guy. And she doesn't have a conversation with him. She knows that the guy is a loser. So before, so they get engaged, it's the wedding day, and she has a conversation with the guy. And the guy is just freaking out, he's panicking, and he's just looking for somebody to be honest with. And so she's like, is everything okay? And he's like, no, it's not okay. And she's like, why? And he's like, you're not going to like the answer. So she says, okay. And so, he confesses that in his heart, he's not really in love, and he's he's not ready to go through with this thing, and this isn't, his heart's not in it, he's just kind of settling. She has a moment, right? And she knows what's going on. She goes and she's going to go tell her sister. And she goes and she approaches her sister, like in the room where she's like finishing up the last details of her makeup and kind of thing. And she's about to have a conversation. And she has a conversation. By this point, she's waited far too long to have a conversation. And so she tells her sister anyways. She knows I'm wrong. So the sister is getting married and walks out. She gets married. And then she gives her sister a hug. And she's like, I love him. You are not going to talk to me, right? And so they have this long period of time where things are screwed up. Now, the relationship, wedding has its great things to it. Marriage has its great points. They end up with a lot of problems. He stops coming around so much. He stops talking when he is there. And it's clear that the relationship is destructive. She would have helped out a lot. She would have put away falsehood. She would have spoken the truth to her sister. The thing about it is that they're members of each other, so not just her life is messed up in this thing, but not just the sister's life, but her life. The whole family dynamics would shake by this thing. It's because she wasn't there to hold her foot accountable. I challenge you with something. Okay. So here's your challenge. All right? In 3 weeks, 3 weeks is November 18th. That's our family group night. I challenge you to do something until family group night. I challenge you to find somebody and to be both proactively and retroactively accountable to them. I think you're going to come in some conflict that you're not used to, but I think it's going to shape your lives in ways that your life has been real, authentic, and like community. Let's pray. Father, I pray for our community that we grow towards you. I pray that we're able to enable each other towards your good. I pray that we're able to make disciples out of each other. I pray that you give us authentic faith, and you help us search for answers when we need them. I pray you help us see you. I pray you help us live out our faith in real ways in the world. I pray you help us do it in ways like Matthew says, that enable the world to see and ask us why we're not. I pray that you give us better faith that helps our friends. Father, with all this I ask that we're brought more in step with the direction you want us to go. I love you. I know it's not ever going to be as much as you love us. Amen. Folks, we're going to transition at this point to our small groups. You're going to go there. You're going to talk about some of the accountability stuff. I hope you have an opportunity to grow together. Break.